have outside that are more than this, than what the current, customers are paying. But this was approved and adopted, September 22nd, 2020. And, and with that, what we did, I believe some months before that, we had did away with the surcharge. I believe the surcharge it was across the board. I can't recall the dollar amount, but I think it was around, is it $650 per customer? And they also had, I don't remember, there was another.
$750.
Yeah, it may have been another charge. So anyway, this is something that was approved by council in 2020. So we're looking at the October of 2022, the new rates will take effect if we move forward with this recommendation.
Council, other questions? All right, I'd like to just address a few things. If you guys would go to page 60, and then go to page, put your thumb on page 90. And which one, each of these pages, these are our bottom line expenses, okay? And you can look comparatively. Now, we've got an inflationary rate that's close to 9%, which is what is posted. And so that, again, whether that's accurate, whether that's high or no, there's a real number out there. So we'll just use 9 or let's say 10% to make it easy. I want you guys to notice, again, these are our total expenditures, and on page, 60 is our general fund. Last year's budget was $5.7 million. Okay, just looking at that now, most companies, and we're no different, most municipal companies, employees make up about 60 to 70% of your cost, and we're probably no different. Now we were fortunate we were able to give our employees a pretty good adjustment last year. We're talking about giving them a little bit of boost now. So if you net out, let's say 70% of that expense, 5.7, and we're looking at this year's budget, which is 2021, 2022, that's about $4 million. So the operating side of that budget, the M&O, the operating side, outside of employees, which we've indicated we're not going to give them a month this year, is about $1.7 million. Okay, that's what it takes on the general fund side. Just to keep up with inflation, and James, I'm going to dovetail on your point, just to keep up with inflation, that should add another $175,000 to that number. All right, hats off again to the city manager and the staff, because you can see it's almost, I'm just going to say, concerning, but they have cut employees, they have cut wherever they could. But you can see in reality, we should be at a higher number than we were last year because of inflation and everything else, and yet we're almost 400,000 less. Now, part of that is we took out 300,000 in street repairs. So you can look at one lump sum and kind of make up the difference. But you can see, and the concerning part for me is that we are operating on a very bare bones budget. I mean, even less than what we budgeted last year. A concern would be, and I mentioned this last time, our guys do maintenance. We change the oil, we change tires, we change batteries, but we're not doing the big capital expenses. We don't pull our wells on a regular basis. We don't double check this equipment, which helps maintain it because we can't afford it for what that does. Like this year, what did we spend on wastewater, Hector? About $160,000 in big ticket repairs. That's items, pumps, and I think a clarifier we had to do. The water well, I think we've got a bill on our desk now for $130,000 for the east well. Those things come up, and so it's important. I'm going to say, guys, it's critical that we don't just make it where we're just barely getting by. Fred has said this. Uncle said it before he left. If it weren't for STEC and if it weren't for ARP money, we would be in trouble because we didn't have the excess money available to cover some of these expenses. So we're blessed that we have that. We're getting another tranche, one last tranche of that, which is going to kind of carry us over. But there is an inherent danger of keeping our budget so completely tight. Now, that's looking at the general fund. Go over to page 90, and you can see kind of a scenario there. Again, the same thing, this is utilities, very, very, very similar. So we've got, at a minimum, again, we have 70% of that is employee cost, most likely. Didn't do the math, but we can assume that's a pretty good number. So you can see overall, we're keeping a very close budget to that. So again, and our utility bills, we mentioned last time, we declined to do a consultative review on our gas systems. Guys, Fred and crew are working on that. We're gonna get these back in front of you, but our gas system is losing money. We're changing our water meters, and that's going to have, we don't know the impact of that, but we've been losing some water through our water meters. We're changing that. We think we're gonna get some boost on that, but that's not calculated in here. Again, this number you're looking at is the expense side. So again, I just want to point out to you guys that we have budgeted this at a very low number at a time where there's inflation. Additional to, we're in a recession by all calculations. We're calculating a good sales tax number. It's just the budget, it's just a guess. That's a couple $100,000 over and above where we are today. Hope we pray that happens, but again, it's a calculation. It's an estimate on what we hope based on what's happening right now. But it is possible that the economy could slow down a little bit. But anyway, nonetheless, we've got to plug a number in. So dovetailing, James, on your comment is that we can't keep holding on to status quo. We've got to budget some money where we're able to meet some emergencies. And one other thing that came up, I want to dovetail on Fred's comment. All right, and we've mentioned this, one of the first things we talked about when I got in last year was we have got to, I think we've got another year before we needed to put that water line in on 281 or 81 North. That was because we annexed that country. And that was probably the thing that we've got to do. We've got our engineering work, we've got that ready to do. The engineering work cost us $800,000, I think, but probably that thing that you saw from the water board, the water study shows $13 million, and that's to extend the water line, to fix Colorado Street, and to drill a water well, which would be awesome. But it's $13 million. Now, we're not first on the list. I think it stops at 40. It's where the cutoff is, so we're 59, better than 250 something. So we've got an opportunity to do this. Now, the blessing would be if we get that, they're gonna forgive 70%, but we will have to pay a $4 million loan. Guys, just roughly, a $4 million loan is $400,000. That would be the annual payment, roughly, just using a rough number. So, again, we're gonna get $13 million worth of work. That part of that has to be done. And I'm speculating at least $8 million for the water line. So the water well would be a blessing, the Colorado Street would be a blessing, all things we need to fix. But we got to be thinking today about that. Most likely that won't come up until next year's budget. But we got to be thinking about that today. The other part of the equation is we think about streets, we think about infrastructure, folks. We're maintenance is in there, but there is no road paving this year. There is no major infrastructure repair or updates. And so what that's going to require at some point in time, undoubtedly, is to establish a bond like we've done before. As an example, we paved Moreno Street. We got 850 feet, probably roughly, I'm going to use $30,000 was our figure. So roughly, I think I mentioned this last time, at $300,000 on those prices, we can do 2 miles a year. Hector, correct me if I'm wrong, but we got 60 miles of roads? 60 miles of roads, so that means every 30 years, we get our roads done using that formula. And so you can see the importance of understanding the money that we're going to have to move forward. It is a tough call. Nobody likes to raise taxes. Nobody likes to raise utility rates. We understand that as elected officials. We're all homeowners. We're all ratepayers. But yet, if we keep, I'm just going to say we're going to hurt ourselves if we keep going backwards. As an example, Fred's rate is based on an increase. We're at 86 cents, and this is based on 88 cents. I think it's a 2 cent or 1.3 cent increase. If we stay at where we are, that means, and I think if we go up 3 cents, we have to get a vote, which I'm fine with that, whatever. But if we keep cutting our rates, as we have to go up, the rate we have to go up is superimposed. We may not be able to make it unless we do a 6 cents rate. But you can see with the money that we're going to have to borrow money. We're going to have to do it. for that, and then two, it's up to you guys whether you decide to do that, but there's no way we can put that water line in. There's just no way unless we borrow the money. And likewise, road repair, infrastructure repair, we gotta look at stuff. So everybody wants to be, we wanna be good stewards of this money, we wanna be careful. But I can attest by looking at the budget, you know, again, it takes us about 10 million to operate, about 2 million for debt service. We're bare bones at what we were last year with inflation in place this year. So consider that as we think about these items coming up. We're gonna talk about, with the next two items on the agenda. I want you guys to ask any other further questions based on what I've said.
So on page 60 where you were saying, okay, our current budget is at the, our current budget for this year is 5 million, whatever, but we're at 3 million. So how, the other 2 million that's left over, how many, I mean, when is it finishes in October, the whole new budget starts in October?
Right, basically.
So, cause so right now we have 2 million, give or take two.
She's going off the current budget and year to date, actually, there's $2 million difference.
So how much of that do y'all anticipate spending for the,
Oh.
what's remaining of the budget?
Well, we should, I mean, right now, we're ahead of the game on, the general fund, but on utilities, we're at about a $60,000 loss for the year. So we anticipate being very close to our budget. Fred, I don't anticipate, Jackie, maybe you can help. I don't anticipate us suffering any big negative numbers at the end of the year. That's your question.
And I guess because I'm asking, the reason I'm asking too is because y'all are talking about the taxes, where we could raise like the utilities, like James said, versus the taxes, and see where that takes us.
I mean, Fred may have some numbers for us to look at.
I'm gonna point out two things, and this is something that, I'll go to your question regarding the utilities, and then if you can look, one of the most important things that you'll look at is on page 23. This is, and what I wanna point out to the council is two things, of that sheet. If you look at that column, and some of the stuff is like, well, what the heck am I looking at here? But that is your tax rate, your total tax rate for the years beginning in 2014 and ending in 2022. Now, the issue where you see the swing there, council, is in 2019, okay? And you'll see, what I mean by that is this, is if you look at that where it says interest and sinking, that's our debt, okay? So what that means is, of all of this tax rate, 37 cents of our property tax goes to pay debt. So what I'm getting at is if you have it, for instance, in this year, and the reason I mention this is because as your payments get bigger, you have to increase that debt service. You have to pay bigger payments. So in this year, for instance, you have a 42-cent tax rate on your interest and sinking. So of the 88 cents, 42 cents of that is going to pay your debt. So that's about $1.3 million. So that's what I'm getting at. And then the concerning part for me, the biggest concern, and I'll let the council look at it because it's there, the assessed values.